Thank you, Provost, for joining us today. This is the first week of the course Ireland in Rebellion, and I think it's great to have you as the Provost, the person who's the leader of Trinity, in effect its president, to come here and join us and welcome the students who are going to be taking this course. But maybe you could tell us something about Trinity and its place in Irish life.
Trinity is an old university, of course, but that's not the most important thing about it. Trinity is Ireland's leading university, a university that offers a full range of courses across all disciplines in the arts and humanities, professional courses in medicine, engineering, business, and so on. So Trinity has a special place in Irish life in that respect, an old university and one that is seen by many, I think, as a place to get the very best that we offer in university education.
It was founded in 1592 by Queen Elizabeth I. What was its mission back then?
Yes, it was founded in 1592, more than 4 centuries ago. Queen Elizabeth I of England gave the right to found the university, but really the impetus to found it came from the citizens of Dublin and the wealthy Irish aristocracy around the country. They came up with the money, if you like, to establish the university, appoint the first professors and fellows and scholars. Its first mission really was to aid in the process of establishing English power in Ireland. I think it's fair to say that even though many people would like to see Trinity differently now, perhaps, and certainly has a different mission now, in 1592 that was first in the mind of Queen Elizabeth I when she granted these letters patent to found the university.
A lot of the figures that we'll be covering on the course, people like Henry Grattan, Theobald Wolfetone, Thomas Davis, Edward Carson, they were all educated in Trinity. Is there something about the Trinity education that encourages radical ideas?
Well, there must be, given that list, and we've many others too in the arts and sciences. Samuel Beckett, for example, a great radical playwright, is a Trinity graduate from the 20th century. So yes, there is something in Trinity's makeup, I think, that educates people to be critical thinkers, people that want to have an impact in the world. They're not run-of-the-mill conservatives, they're people with a radical edge. And we still want that from our students.
Catholics were only allowed, the government only allowed Catholics to enter Trinity in 1793, and in the 20th century some Catholic archbishops didn't want Catholics coming to Trinity. Did that create problems in Trinity's past?
I think it created problems for Trinity's past. I think it created problems in the history of Ireland. Remember, going back into those centuries, 15th, 16th, 17th century, there was significant discrimination against Catholics by the state, effectively the British state. And we have the notorious penal laws, for example. So difficulties for Catholics entering Trinity College were one aspect of a broader discrimination against Catholics. Now, later, of course, the bishops, when it became okay for Catholics, when Catholics were allowed to enter the university, many of the Catholic bishops would have felt that it wasn't offering the kind of education that was good for Catholics, and that it would be better for Catholics to enter universities that were set up purposely to educate Catholics. And then we had a situation where Catholics would want to come, but would have to get the permission of their bishop to come. Sometimes that permission wouldn't be forthcoming. Happily now, of course, that's all behind us since the 1970s, really. Catholics, and even before that, Catholics would ignore their bishops and come anyway. But since then, it hasn't been necessary to get episcopal permission to come to Trinity.
And maybe that contributed to the sense that Trinity wasn't, it was maybe a bastion of the establishment, maybe anti-national, even though, again, some of the great figures of Irish nationalism like Tone and Robert Emmet were Trinity people.
Yeah, I think the relationship there is complex. After 1798, a visitation was held in the university by Lord Clare, and many of those that would have had sympathies for Ireland, would have been patriotic in that sense, were expelled from the university, including, I think, Tone himself. And that creates an impression in people's minds, I suppose, that Trinity was anti-Ireland or anti-nationalist. It certainly was unionist, and I think that that's clear to say, that Trinity was a university at that time which identified with the Crown. A lot of the endowments, a lot of the money and wealth that the university would have had at the time would have come through its relationship with the court in London. But it's important to recognise that Trinity's history is complex in that way. It established itself as a university to bring British and specifically I think English authority into Ireland, and would have existed for the first number of centuries with that objective being achieved. That didn't mean though that some of the students weren't radicals like Tone and like Emmett. And indeed, I think it is to the credit of the university at the time that it encouraged the students to think in this way, ways that would have been counter to how many of their professors would have been thinking.
Moving forward then to the 20th century, so many Trinity students and staff went off to fight in the First World War, and there's a roll of honour in Trinity to those who died. That has always been a difficult part of Ireland's history, the numbers who fought and died in the First World War. How are they remembered in Trinity, and I suppose what is the way that Trinity will remember them then for the anniversary of the First World War? Well,
I think we have to say clearly that many are very well remembered. There's a Hall of Honour where all their names are on the wall, and the Provost every year lays a wreath in remembrance of those who died in the First World War. And I think it's right and appropriate to say that we're proud that they fought for what they felt was right at the time. And we will continue, even now in the decade of commemorations, to be proud of what they have achieved. I hope to be able to make the Hall of Honour publicly accessible. At the moment, for some reason, this Hall of Honour is not open to the public in a way I would like it to be, and that's one of the changes I want to make in the next few months.
And then, of course, the 1916 Rising changed everything, and Trinity famously shut its doors and kept the rebels out. And some historians say that it was a huge tactical mistake, the rebels not taking Trinity, because General Maxwell would have hesitated about destroying it. Trinity's role in the 1916 Rising, is that also maybe a little bit difficult to? What role will Trinity then play for the anniversary there?
Firstly, coming back to the historical situation, of course, British troops were garrisoned in Trinity College and had their camps in Front Square. So clearly, the establishment and the British military saw Trinity as a place, a haven for them within the city, a safe place. Now, whether we can look back on that and say that in some ways the leadership of the college was wrong at the time, I don't think so. I think the 1916 Rising was only supported at the time by a very small number of people, and the desire of most Dubliners was to ensure the preservation of the structural fabric of the city, to make sure it didn't get destroyed. And in that respect, I don't think Trinity's staff and students were very much out of kilter with the rest of Dubliners. What we will do when it comes to the celebrations, I think we've got to focus on, and it's right to look on the unique achievements of the 1916 rebellion. Despite the fact that it might have had very little support at the outset, it did get support after the executions, when people began to see how little control Irish people really had over events in their own city and in their own country. Also, many of those executed in 1916, like Pádraig Pearse, like Thomas MacDonagh, were great intellectuals and poets and educationalists. And much of what they wrote before the 1916 rebellion is well worth revising, well worth looking at again, to seeing what relevance it has for modern Irish life.
Again, I mentioned that a lot of the figures that we'll be studying in this course were educated at Trinity. We talk about Burke and Grattan, Tone, Emmett, Davis. Even Redmond studied for a few years in Trinity. I think Pearson de Valera did some classes in Trinity. Is there a particular Trinity figure from this period who you particularly admire?
It's hard to pick out one from that pantheon, but I think Edmund Burke is a figure that is well worth a deeper study, and I've studied him more deeply myself recently. Burke, although seemingly a difficult figure personally, and one who loved to argue with people and even fell out with many of his friends, he is a man whose ideas on politics and ideas on society are as valuable for us today as they were when they were written. So he's something of a hero, but we shouldn't forget too that it's not all about politicians and it's not all about military heroes. We had some great scientists, great literary people from that time. John Millington Synge, who wrote Playboy of the Western World, was a Trinity graduate of that period, and I think I'm very proud of him. Likewise, William Rowan Hamilton, founder of Hamiltonian mechanics, which is the method of calculating motion of complex orbits and used for many mathematical treatments in quantum mechanics. He's also a Trinity graduate of that period. So there was a flourishing, if you like, in those decades leading up to the turn of the last century and into the 20th century of talent within Trinity. It's interesting to think about what gets such talent in such a place at such a time.
Is there anyone from that period or that list that you don't particularly admire?
I must say now, and I'm going to show my colours a little bit here, I find it hard to admire Edward Carson. I know he was a great man. I know
a brilliant lawyer.
He was a brilliant lawyer. But I've yet to read enough history to learn to admire him. But that's a challenge for me. Maybe I'll do this course.
We'll be debating him certainly in the weeks ahead and his legacy. What about then the students who are taking this course? Do you have a message for them? Should they visit Trinity in the years to come? What do you hope to get out of this?
Well, firstly, I hope they learn a lot about Irish history. I hope they learn the complexities of history. It's not just sometimes when we look in retrospect in history, we can see the complexities of events that happened 50 years ago or 100 years ago. But we shouldn't forget from that the events that are happening now today are equally complex and equally difficult to reduce to sound bites and to single, simple messages. So get from this course that not only is history complex, but the events of our own time are complex, and we must keep a critical mind in looking in to contemporary events as well.
You started off as a student yourself in Trinity in the 1980s. You were then elected by the staff and students, the president, the provost of the university. Does that, well, maybe one of our students who are taking this course might follow the same path, but do you think the fact that your position is elected makes it an extra special position?
I think it does. To be elected by the 700 or 800 staff and student representatives is a great honour for me and a great, I think, validation for the vision that I put forward at the time of my election, my vision for the university. So yes, and I think it's very few universities in the world that elect the president and provost in a way that it's done here in Trinity College. It's a tradition that dates back to the foundation of the university, and one that we're proud of, and one that we believe, more importantly, adds value to Trinity's ability to be a leading university, a university for Ireland on the world stage.
So that kind of ties into the mission of Trinity now. Where do you see Trinity now, and where do you see Trinity in the future?
Well, Trinity now is a university that has a global reputation, a university known around the world for the quality of the education and research that it does, and for the nature of the student experience, the particular nature, the unique nature of what students experience as undergraduates in Trinity College. In the future, we're going to have to face many challenges, as indeed all universities around the world are going to face. Students are more internationally mobile than they ever have been, and indeed more and more of education will be offered online and offered at a distance. And this presents some challenges for the well-established universities such as Trinity. We can't take anything for granted here. We can't rest on our laurels. We have to continuously move with new technologies of education and move with the new ways that the rising generations have for learning.
Okay, Dr Patrick Prendergast, Provost of Trinity College Dublin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Patrick.